Disagreements over the South China Sea are again stoking tensions between the United States and China. Beijing has hit back at Washington after the U.S. State Department released a report saying China has no legal basis for its maritime claims. China says that the paper distorts international law and is misleading. It's accused the U.S. of political manipulation. China asserts historical rights to almost all of the South China Sea in its so-called 9-line map. Now, that's an area that stretches 2,000 kilometres from the Chinese mainland. Other countries, including Malaysia, the Philippines and Vietnam, are also claiming parts of that region. The U.S. report rejects China's justifications. It even declares Beijing's historical rights to the South China Sea meaningless. The paper also refutes China's claims that it's abiding by international law. Live now to our correspondents for the perspective from both China and the United States. Simon Marks is in Washington, D.C. Olivia Song is in Beijing. Simon, first to you. A report of this nature is not the first time by the United States, but how is this one different?
Well, you're right, Dawn. It's not the first report that the State Department has published on China's claims in the South China Sea, but this is far away the most detailed. It's a 47-page report that has been published by the State Department's Bureau of Oceans and International Environment and Scientific Affairs, and it literally puts China's claims under the microscope. It looks at every single part of the South China Sea with maps and charts, and it judges each claim and dismisses each claim. So, for example, it identifies more than 100 places where it says China is laying territorial claim to features in the sea that are submerged at high tide. Therefore, in each case, it says that China, under the terms of international maritime law, has no claim to those features because they spend a considerable portion of each day submerged under the waves. This then is a much more precise instrument in terms of a document than the US State Department has published before. At the end of the day, the conclusion it draws is the same as previous documents, though this one runs 47 pages, and it says that China's rights are overstated, invalid, and it pushes back against any notion that the Chinese can claim that territory in the South China Sea as its own.
At the same time, Simon, the US is increasing its military presence in the South China Sea.
Yeah, very much so, with China saying that in 2021, military operations by the United States more than doubled. Certainly the United States concedes and indeed planned to make its military presence in the South China Sea much more substantially noticeable and more substantial in 2021 than it was in 2020. The Global Times says that spy planes carried out 1,200 aerial close-in reconnaissance sorties on China, with some of them coming nearly 20 nautical miles off the Chinese mainland's territorial baseline. Now, the United States will take issue with the description of those claims, but it won't take issue over the fact that the United States has been engaged in a much more muscular presence in the South China Sea, all part of President Biden's policy, inherited, of course, by from his predecessor, Donald Trump, of seeking to safeguard international maritime operations in the South China Sea, navigation exercises and freedom of movement on the part of all vessels that are not simply Chinese flagged. So there's no question that the Biden administration is on course to continue moving down that path throughout 2022. This is all part of President Biden's determination to convey to the Chinese and also to America's partners and allies in ASEAN and in the region that it takes these freedom of navigation issues very seriously, rejects China's claims, and is absolutely determined to continue pushing on that issue in the months and years ahead.
Simon, thank you. Simon Marks reporting from Washington, D.C.
And now to Olivia in Beijing. Olivia, of course, Beijing already responding to this move from the State Department. It's accusing Washington of political manipulation with multiple standards for its own selfish interests.
Yeah, that's right, Wei Su. China hitting back as expected at this U.S. report, saying that the U.S. has distorted international law, confused the public, and is sowing discord. And as Simon has mentioned there's a lot of detail in this report. But essentially what it's saying is that China's claims are not in line with the UN Convention on the Law of the Seas. And China's position, which it repeated today, is that it's saying that while the U.S. refuses to accede to this 1982 UN treaty, it misinterprets the convention and applies multiple standards for its own selfish reasons, and it accuses the U.S. of doing this for political manipulation. Now, China, as we know, has ratified the treaty, but the U.S. has not. And China's claims in the South China Sea are based on several factors. One is geography, that so-called 9-dash line. And also, China is saying that it has historic rights for its maritime claims. But the U.S. report is saying that there is no legal basis for this. And if you recall, in 2016, an international tribunal also said that there was no legal basis for China's claims. But China has repeatedly, through the years since that ruling had been made, rejected this, saying again today that the outcome in 2016 was illegal, null, and is something that China does not accept or recognize. The timing of this is also key as we see the U.S. increasingly putting pressure on China on several fronts, whether it's trade or human rights or in the South China Sea. And the U.S. in its report also calling on Beijing to stop its unlawful and coercive activities in the waters. But China has always maintained that its military presence in the South China Sea is for self-defense. And China, on its part, has been angered by the U.S. so-called freedom of navigation operations as a country that is not part of the region. And China, again, reiterating today that it is working with ASEAN countries, many of whom are claimant states in the South China Sea. And China is saying that they are working with ASEAN to promote peace and stability in the region.
Thanks for that, Olivia. Olivia Xiong reporting live there from Beijing.